if I can come on to the interviews now that you will be conducting, because they're going to be virtual interviews. We're already interviewing the normal number of candidates we would on a weekly basis, but we're doing it virtually. And there are lots of things we're having to do in order to make sure we do it well. And if you're not used to interviewing, it's really rather important that you should get it right on screen. So, for example, having your screen the right distance from yourself and your eye in line with that little green dot that makes you look as if you're looking at people rather than looking somewhere else. Making sure that you're looking business fit and making sure that your background is an appealing one, or you put it onto blur. But very important not to be looming and not to be too far away for someone to be able to recognise your expressions, your facial expressions, and to minimise the amount of movement that you give, because that can cause a lot of blurring on the screen and make it difficult for someone to feel that they're building a rapport with you. I think that it's a little known fact to our clients that on the occasions when you have a job turned down, it's very rarely to do with money. It's much more frequently to do with the relationship they felt they were offered or were not offered at the point of interview, either with you or by the person they were passed on to be interviewed by. So making sure there aren't just innocent mistakes made is important. I'll list some of them for you. Some are so easily avoidable. One of them would be punctuality. If candidates have kept waiting for whatever reason, it's disrespectful. It starts things off thinking, oh well, big fat office, lovely furniture, a lot of money, and I'm looking for a job, and they don't think I'm very important. It flags up all the wrong feelings. So even if you were being kept back by someone who was terribly important, it was not as important as you losing what might have been the best candidate. So what I'm advocating is being as strict about your timing for interviews that might be organised for you as you've ever been, and a bit more. And also perhaps coaching some of your managers who might be the next leg on for the interviews, to make sure they're not just running very uninspirational, inappropriate in whatever way, just inadequate interviews. Because of course, although the candidate is trying to sell themselves to you, you also have the job of selling yourself to the candidate. And even at a time when there might be an imbalance, as there will be coming out of this, there'll be fewer jobs and more candidates. But even at that point, you'll find that candidates who really know their own worth will not sell themselves down the river to take a job where they think it's not a very good company, it's not a very respectful company, it's not one where they're going to be cherished and looked after. So all these things are important. They're the kind of things that make you choose your friends socially. They're the kind of things that make you decide, I don't think I'll bother to follow up on that one with that particular person. I don't think they're quite my thing, quite my cup of tea. And quite my cup of tea normally means not friendly enough, not warm enough, not genuine enough, not sincere enough, not trustworthy enough with my emotions. So these are the kind of judgments happening behind the face that smiles and looks smart and they're dressed up for you. But these are the kind of judgments being made, and ones which need to be protected against, particularly inadvertently causing a difficulty. I think that when you're in this virtual interview situation, words have never been more important, and the way in which you approach from the viewpoint of empathy. The empathy with which you approach the very beginning of an interview. You might have been trained to do it the XYZ way. You might have been given all your training on competencies and all that very important stuff. But to start off with, you've got to make the person actually want to work for you. And I think to have some kind of an understanding of where they're coming from is important. So we will be briefing you on what their current living situation is concerned and what their circumstances are in preparation for you, so that you can then be empathetic to their situation and be understanding of what they're trying to live their lives around and any challenges they might have. And I think that when you're meeting someone on screen for the first time, to ask them, have you ever done an interview on screen before? Or how many have you done so far? Because then you're getting an idea of just whether they are doing something for the very first time against someone who's had 10, 11, 12 or all their lives, because they were with a big global company where it was quite normal for them to do this kind of thing. So obviously they'll be showing up in a much better light, but they won't necessarily be the better candidate for you. So being sensitive to those kind of aspects, I think, is important.